I do work in the child field sector, and like I brought up a lot of my cousins and stuff, like taking care of them and things like that, having slight loss. And then like now that I'm married and I'm like, okay, potentially wanting to have children, and it's like, okay, well, how will I take care of a newborn? Like my biggest fear is like, for example, like cutting their nails, because you have to be very
Very
delicate with
precise.
those type of things. Or if my child were to, like, the lips were turned blue or something, and if I'm home alone, will I be able to see that? So I think in my head, or like those are things I have already thought about and have tried to find different ways to figure that out. In a way, I guess I'm really glad that I have experience caring for newborns and all throughout like toddler age. So I kind of know how it would be becoming a mom. Obviously, it's a lot different when you're a mom and you're, breastfeeding and just taking care of them round the clock. But I don't know if any of you guys, or if like Shaini, since you have a visual disability, like if those are some things you've thought about, or any of you guys, just in terms of like what things would get in the way of you taking care of your child with a disability. And Cynthia, you have a child, so you probably have experience this.
Well, I mean, for me, I was always told you have to be very careful when you're bathing the baby. If you have a seizure, you might end up accidentally drown the baby, and those were things people asked me about. And like there are always sponge baths, or I can always have my husband with me when we did that. We or like I had help. I had some help. Especially when he was born. I still have some help now, and my mom is around a lot. I'm going to probably talk about at a different time about like the stress that you get from family members who want you to raise your child a certain way and you don't, because you're raised in a different culture, or but that's like something completely.
That's a whole other topic on its own.
Yes, of course, yeah.
I was gonna say, wait till I have a baby for that one, and then maybe I'll be able to chime in something there too. Or wait till we all have babies, and then we'll all come back here and be like, "Wow, so how's it going?"
Yeah. So there are those risks, and there's of course also the risk of having, when you're holding a child, and what happens if you have a seizure and you drop the child. But so far nothing has happened, and like I said, he's almost 2 years old and he's running around and he's a very happy little kid. So
I think I was accidentally dropped at one point when I was a baby, and I was fine. I think.
Well, yeah, kids fall.
I think it happens to a lot of kids, like accidentally. I think at one point, one of your parents is going to drop you at one point. Mm-hmm. But here's the other thing too, is that you're mentioning, okay, well then you can have help from your husband and all that. But what if, for example, your partner is working all the time, or you are a single mom, or something like that, and that makes it more complicated because then you have to do everything yourself.
In my family, yes, I have a really big family, and I have a lot of cousins now that are like older too, and it's a joke that, oh, you take care of all of our kids, so we're gonna have to take care of your child. And I said, you bet, if you guys want me to have a child, you're taking care of it. But at the same, and 100%, my mom has told me, like, she's like, when you have a child, you're gonna get, like, will be there to support me through everything in that process. But at the same time, like, I had a conversation with my friend. I'm like, knowing how my family is, and yes, I love them to death and whatnot, and they're they want to do everything because they love me and they're all excited and stuff. But I'm like, I don't think I will be able to have like the structure and the timetable and this thing that I want to have with my child in a way.
If they get in the way?
Yeah, like it's good. Like, yeah, my aunt's a nurse, and she just had her child in the pandemic right now, and we were just having a conversation, and we were just talking about certain things, like, how do you feel about random people like touching your child or holding your child or giving it a kiss and all of that. And anyways, that's a different conversation. But it was interesting, when she's a nurse, so she knows all, like, she knows about all the health risks and this and that and whatever. And I was just telling her my view. She's like, Sarah, with our culture, forget about it. Like, what all these things that you want is not gonna happen.
like sleep training is not a thing in our culture, which boggles my mind that our parents didn't sleep train us the way that our like my cousins and my friends are doing it now, and it's life changing. But in our culture, that wasn't a thing.
What is it?
Slept whenever they decide to put us to bed, and if someone came to visit to see the baby, they would wake you up.
Yeah.
They would like, wake up the
Thankfully,
child.
my mom was very different in that sense.
Yeah.
And my friends and them always say that, yes, even though, you know, I'm a Muslim and I'm Indian, that I grew up in a very, I guess, Western culture. Like, no matter what, me and my brother, my middle brother, we were in bed at 8:30. Like, we had a structured routine. Doesn't matter if there's a party going on, doesn't you're showered, have your, you know, glass of milk, and you're in bed by 8:30, whether it's a weekend, summer, winter, whatever. And yeah, and that is true. Like, but a lot of, like, even my cousins and them at like the age of 7 or even younger, there was really no bedtime routine. Oh, okay, yeah, we'll just put our child to bed late so that they will wake up late so we can sleep in. But I'm like,
Yeah.
so everything is for the benefit of the family and the parent, because like they don't want to have to, like, I don't know, like deal, or they're just looking for the easy way out, and versus, like, I guess, working and knowing everything. You're like, well,
traditionally there are like people had 1 million kids, so
Yeah.
maybe that's why. And when you only have 1 or 2 or 3, three's a lot now for here, and it's just different.
Yeah, because my parents both come from families of siblings of like at least like 8 or 10 siblings.
Oh wow.
And like then like their siblings had at least like 3 kids. I think on our side of both sides of my family, the minimum is 3 kids. And I always tell my mom, like, I think I would stop at 2. Financially, physically, for me personally, 2 is what I think is good. So I can have a good life, but my kids are comfortable, you know, and like they're not deprived of stuff, you know. But that's my personal choice. If maybe things will change and I will end up having 3, God knows. But like our parents, like I know my parents like sacrificed so much, like to be parents and for us to have the life that we have. Like I know that, and I'm like grateful for all the sacrifices that they did. Like my parents never took vacations. Like they only took a vacation when me and my sister like put them on one. Like they don't go shopping unless we literally go, Mom, come with us, and we'll go, okay, we're gonna pay. Like they don't look at things for themselves. It was always their kids. Everything was always about their kids. So to them, they never looked at it like, oh, but we couldn't afford to have a 3rd child. You know what I mean? She got pregnant, okay, I'm having a 3rd, we'll make it work. So I guess it's like a whole different generation. So like you guys said, like when it comes to us parenting, like there are things that my parents did that I do want to take over to when I parent my kid, but there are also things that I would like to add or not include when I have kids. My mom will come and help when my day comes. At the same time, I feel like I need to sit her down and be like, okay, like this and this is okay, but like certain things, it's not going to be what we do. And I think that's something you have to have a conversation with them ahead of time.
Well, too late for me.
It's like nap time is important. Mom, do not like keep my child up when it's nap time, or else like
they get very cranky. So
yeah.
But I think it's like I said, I think it's because like we're all like pretty much first generation here, and I think it's like it's we're just gonna have to change a bit of the way that they raised us, and just kind of be like, this is how it's done here, like, you know, like this is what works. And for our parents too, it's trial and error, and I'm sure they did things differently than that their parents did, right? So
yeah, like I mean, like, you know, like I don't believe in feeding a child. Like I believe in once they reach a certain age that they have to try to eat independently. But my mom still wants me to feed him purees. I was like, he's almost 2. He can use his fingers to eat bite-sized food. He can even use a fork and a spoon. Like he does.
I didn't use a knife till I was 10.
In our culture, I don't know if Shaini experiences when they're like infants, like after like 4 or 5 months old, like if they're eating something, they'll like swatch a little bit in their mouth, or like give them a taste of like fruit or rice or something. And like I seen it happen the other day, and I was having anxiety on behalf of my aunt. I was like, he's only 5 months old, like stop sticking food in his mouth, like, or letting him taste it, he's gonna eat soup.
Well,
And
some
then
pediatricians actually recommend starting purees at 4 or 5 months.
you end up force feeding your kids, you don't know what's going to happen to them later in life, and then they won't develop a great relationship with food. So, and that's really important, is that your kid has a good relationship with food, because, and I know, Sarah, you're going to talk about in another episode that you've had some experience with that as well from your own experience. So, and we're really looking forward to hearing that story. But it is obviously, when you have the cultural expectations, and then you have a disability, and then you're parenting, it's just a lot of stress. And I don't even want to know what I'm in for. I don't even want to know what I'm in for yet, because I know I'm like, oh my goodness.
You can have it from both sides.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, with me, it's a little different from the rest of you, because I am like second and third generation Canadian. So we have been here a while, and there's some different expectations, but still there will be I'm sure there'll be things that I hear, and then I'm sure that people will make comments when I actually do make my announcement on Facebook and all that, and talk about how I am pregnant. I'm sure I'm going to get comments from people that are like, she's not strong enough to do this. Why is she doing this? Like, and I know I'm going to hear some of that, and it's going to be hard, but the reason that I'm actually coming out and talking about this is because I feel like I owe it to other people with disabilities to say that this is possible. It's not easy, but it's possible. And I also kind of want, I want people to learn about what it is like to be disabled and pregnant, because it's just not talked about. And eventually I hope that does become a mainstream topic, because right now you have to go to the small corners of the internet to find information about it. And then again, disability and parenting, once I get to that stage, as you've all mentioned right now, that's going to be a whole other topic, is disability and parenting. And I said already, we're planning ahead to season 3. We're like, we're going to do an episode on that in season 3, because already we got so much lined up for season 2. It's like, that we're not even gonna get to till season 3. But it's and the other thing is too, is like dealing with and I mean, this is not something obviously that I want to think about, but it's always possible, pregnancy loss and all that, and how you deal with that with a disability. And a lot of these things, pregnancy loss is a taboo topic to start with. So and there's definitely nothing online about that. So
there's more and more information coming in, like I see in social media, is to remember the baby's lost. And sometimes I'm a little uncomfortable thinking about it, because the very first transfer my surrogate had was a chemical pregnancy. It wasn't really meant to begin with. It's not like somebody who had a pregnancy loss 8 weeks in.
And it's hard because it didn't happen in your uterus. And so it's really hard kind of to, and I mean, you would still have the same feelings that any other parent would have if you had a chemical pregnancy. It's the same thing, but because it wasn't in your uterus, it's like, well, how do I think about that? And how do I process that?
Yeah, and a lot of women don't even know that it was a chemical pregnancy. So that's why I don't think it's really more for people who've had fertility treatment that they know, or transfers that didn't work. I don't know if we should be included in that.
Well, yes, but you should. And here's the thing, is that when you discuss pregnancy and parenting online in general, and this is just not specific to disability by any means, but there's such a pressure online to be like the perfect parent, to have the perfect pregnancy, to do everything and show everything perfectly, and make sure you line things up properly for Instagram, and have your little diagram that says how old your baby is and all this. And there's such a pressure for that when things go wrong, you don't hear people talking about it. And you get like, it's silence, because you only get the best images on Facebook and all that. And, and it's especially hard too for people who are dealing with infertility, to see also happy messages. I'm like, look, my baby's now 5 months old, or yay, I'm pregnant, and all that. And I am going to be very mindful of that when I do announce, because it's just, I know that there are so many people out there that are still struggling to have babies, and it's not easy. And the thing is, I think generally, whether it's disability or just infertility or anything in general, that we just need to be more open with our struggles and make it's more the norm, rather than always just bragging about the good times.
Yeah, and I was just gonna say, like, to be honest, like, I think thus far, I don't really think I have met anyone that has or have had a child and being partially sighted and having that experience, like it's very hard to find people with disability that's experiencing raising children while having a physical disability. I just like, like when I came across your podcast and meeting you guys, this is like maybe the first round of people that I probably have met that have a physical disability and it's raising a child. But in the past, I really haven't, like when I've thought about, I'm like, who could I reach out who's a mom and that is partially sighted, that when the time for me comes to become a child, that I could speak to them and get some pointers or tips and things like that. Because there's a lot of groups out there, mom groups, and even when you have a child, drop-in centers and stuff like that, but you're only going to see the typical, I guess, quote unquote normal mom and child there.
Yeah, there's a whole market out there that hasn't been tapped into, and and that's something that I hope through this podcast, that people realize that there's a market that is untapped and we need to go into, and we need to start talking about, and disability friendly. And the other thing that we'll talk about in the future is also disability friendly furniture for kids, so that it makes it easier for a parent to put a kid in a crib or a stroller or something like that, or a carrier. For example, I won't be able to lift our kid once they get to a certain weight. And there is no way that I'm going to be able to, always be picking up the kid, because there's only a certain amount of weight I can lift that's safe for my heart condition. So, it's all these things that you have to think about. And, and for people living with sight loss, like both of you, Shaini and Sarah, you might need certain things that are cues that you wouldn't be able to tell, maybe you'll need, what do you call it? An audio cue or something for certain things, because it might be hard to see something.
When I do get pregnant, I go for my first or second or ultrasound, not being able to see the ultrasound screen. Yes, I'll have my husband or whoever, there to describe, but it's not the same when it's being described of what's on the screen versus when you're physically seeing what's on the screen, if that makes sense.
Completely makes sense. And I mean, hopefully, by the time you get pregnant, your husband will be able to go with you, because right now the spouse is not able to go with you. You have to go alone, which is really hard. I am dreading my appointment just because of that, because I'm not going to be with my husband. And so he's not going to see the ultrasound. And apparently sometimes they don't even let you go on video. This has been really, really eye-opening. I'm glad that everybody's been able to share this much, because it is such a taboo topic, both parenting, pregnancy, and just having kids in general, and the stigma around it when having a disability. And I'm hoping that in a couple of years from now, when all of us have kids, and maybe some of us will be on our second, God knows, not happening to me, I'm doing it once and that's it. That's it, one time. And if we have another one, it'll be like, okay, we'll adopt or we'll do something else. Other than that, no, there's not. But I'm hoping in a couple of years from now that the world will be more aware of these kind of issues than we are now.